Single dad janitor smashed the CEO's laptop. Then the secret inside shocked the entire boardroom. The sound of shattering glass and cracking metal echoed through the 53rd floor of Meridian Tower like a thunderclap on a silent night. Every head in that gleaming boardroom snapped toward the conference table, where Marcus Webb, the building's janitor, stood with a mop handle still trembling in his grip, and a MacBook Pro lay in pieces across the polished mahogany surface, sparking and smoking among scattered coffee cups and quarterly reports. The CEO, Victoria Hargrove, pressed both hands to her mouth. A junior executive knocked his chair backward, standing up so fast, and for one long, terrible moment, nobody breathed. Nobody could believe what they had just witnessed. But what happened next, what crawled out of that broken machine's final dying screen, would change every single person in that room forever. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet dignity of people the world overlooks, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment below, share this story with someone who needs it today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story that matters. Marcus Webb was 41 years old and had the kind of face that looked like life had leaned on it heavily. Deep lines around his eyes, hands that were always slightly rough no matter how much lotion he used. He wore his Navy maintenance uniform like armor, because in a building full of people in $1,000 suits, the uniform was the thing that made him invisible. And invisibility was the only dignity a man in his position was reliably allowed. He had worked the morning shift at Meridian Tower for 6 years. 6 years of empty hallways, humming floor buffers, and the quiet company of his own thoughts. He had started this job 2 months after his wife Diane died of a cardiac event at 34, leaving him alone with a 7-year-old daughter named Chloe who still slept with the light on and still asked sometimes whether Mama could see them from heaven. Marcus believed she could. He had to believe that. It was the scaffolding that held the whole structure of his life upright. Chloe was now 13. She was brilliant in the terrifying specific way that some children are, the kind of brilliant that school systems are not designed to hold. She had taught herself to code at 9 using free tutorials on a library computer. By 11, she had built a functioning inventory management app for the small grocery store 2 blocks from their apartment, and the owner had paid her in groceries for 3 months because he genuinely didn't know what else to do with his gratitude. By 13, she had been quietly, obsessively working on something she called Project Lumen, a machine learning tool designed to detect early cardiac arrhythmia patterns in consumer-grade heart rate data. She had built it in memory of her mother. She had built it so that other 7-year-olds would not have to learn, the way she did, that a heart could simply stop without warning. Marcus knew his daughter was extraordinary. He did not know how to give her extraordinary opportunities on a janitor's salary. He had applied for scholarships. He had attended school meetings and community programs, and had once taken a 4-hour bus ride to attend a youth tech fair where a scout from a prominent STEM foundation had shaken Chloe's hand and said she was remarkable, and then never followed up. He had emailed, he had called. The phone just rang into a void that seemed specifically shaped to swallow the ambitions of people without the right last names or the right zip codes. That morning, the morning of the boardroom, the morning of the broken laptop, Marcus had arrived at Meridian Tower at 5 a.m. as usual. He had cleaned the lobby, the executive bathrooms, the elevator banks. He had worked his way up the floors the way he always did, methodically, invisibly, with the quiet pride of a man who could not afford to do his job badly, even when the world rewarded him as though he had. He had entered the 53rd floor boardroom to clean before the 7:30 executive meeting. The room was empty and gleaming in the pre-dawn city light. He moved chairs, collected forgotten water bottles, ran a cloth across the long mahogany table. And that was when he saw the laptop. It was open at the far end of the table, screen glowing, connected to the room's presentation system. Someone had left it there overnight. A screensaver drifted lazily across the display. Marcus leaned the mop against the wall and walked toward it, intending simply to close it so the screen wouldn't burn. He picked up the mop to maneuver around the chair blocking his path, and the handle caught the edge of a glass someone had left balanced on the armrest. The glass fell. He lunged instinctively to catch it. His elbow caught the laptop instead. It skidded across the table, hit the opposite edge, and crashed to the floor with a sound like a small explosion. He stood there in the silence that followed, staring at the cracked casing and sparking screen, and felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. He knew what a laptop like that cost. He knew what this moment could cost him. 6 years of quiet, invisible reliability, gone in one lurching, terrible second. He was still standing there, still holding the mop, face ashen, when the executive team filed in at 7:30 and found him exactly as he was, a man standing over a broken thing, unable to run, unwilling to lie. Victoria Hargrove, Meridian CEO, saw her laptop in pieces and said sharply, the words that had already been circling in the room's charged air. Her voice was controlled, but her eyes were not. She demanded to know what had happened. She demanded to know who he was. Someone in the back muttered something about security. Someone else was already reaching for a phone. And then the broken laptop flickered. The cracked screen pulsed once, connected still to the presentation system by the HDMI cable that hadn't been dislodged, and threw its contents onto the 60-inch display at the head of the room. The screensaver had died in the fall. What replaced it was the last document the machine had open. It was Chloe's file. Marcus had emailed it 2 weeks earlier to every address he could find on Meridian's corporate website after reading that the company had a technology philanthropy division. He had not expected a response. He had not received one. But someone in this building had opened it, had been looking at it. The document bloomed across the screen in full detail. Chloe's photograph, her hand-drawn diagrams, her project summary for Project Lumen, her test data, her story, and at the top, in the careful, earnest font of a 13-year-old who wanted to be taken seriously, the dedication. For my mom, so other moms can stay. The room went absolutely still. Victoria Hargrove turned from the screen to Marcus, then back to the screen. Her jaw had changed. Something behind her eyes had shifted in a way that the quarterly reports and the performance metrics and the years of careful professional composure had never quite allowed. She asked quietly if this was his daughter. Marcus said yes. She asked if the work was real. He said every line of it. She looked around the room at her executives, at faces that had moments ago been prepared for termination proceedings. And she said something none of them would forget. She said they had been looking for exactly this, and it had been in their building the whole time, invisible, walking the floors, just waiting for someone to finally look. If this story moved something in you, if you felt even a flicker of what Marcus and Chloe carried, please let this video know. Like it, share it, and leave a comment below telling us, what would you have done in that boardroom? Drop a comment with just the word Lumen if this story touched your heart. Let's fill the comments with light. Within 6 weeks, Meridian's foundation had funded Chloe's development fully. Within a year, Project Lumen was in clinical trials, and Marcus still worked. Not because he had to, but because the building was his, in the way that a place becomes yours when you have loved it quietly and thanklessly for a very long time. He just wore a different badge now, one that said Advisor, Youth Technology Initiative. He wore it the same way he had always worn his uniform, with the straightforward, unshakable dignity of a man who had always known his worth and had simply been waiting for the room to catch up.